Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. From websites and online stores, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence. Hello friends, I hope that you've been well. We are jumping straight into today's video. We are continuing on the Zodiac portrait series and we are doing Scorpio this month. I know that Scorpio season has passed. My timing on these Zodiac illustrations hasn't been quite perfect. I feel like I keep missing the proper birthday windows, but better late than never. As you might know, I am embarking on this year-long Zodiac series, and we are at the very second last illustration, which feels really good. Next month will be Sagittarius, and then I will officially have done the entire set. I have every single Zodiac as a video on my YouTube channel, so if you want to go back and catch yours or you missed some, feel free to check those out. And I have a varied amount of topics that I cover. Some of them are really detailed in terms of the process. Some of them are a little bit more chatty. Today's video is going to be another chatty one, just because I feel like the process of this illustration is much of the same as the previous one, so I don't think there's a ton of new things to really mention in detail. So it's going to be pretty casual voiceover today, and the topic of discussion is going to be about how I'm feeling about my art style and the direction that I think I want to start moving towards into next year. Since embarking on this series, I have kind of learned a little bit more about what I like and what I don't like about my artwork and where I want to go. So we are going to be kind of discussing that and any kind of tidbits I have about this Zodiac illustration. But before we continue, I'd like to thank Squarespace, the sponsor of today's video. A new feature that I recently figured out is that if you host an online shop on your Squarespace website and you connect your Square Reader, you can actually keep track of your inventory. So for those of you who don't know, if you do in-person conventions and artist alleys, a Square Reader allows you to accept card payments, which is such a game changer these days since people often don't have as much cash on them. But the annoying thing about selling merch online and in person is keeping track of the inventory in two different places. So if you connect your Square account with Squarespace, it will actually keep track of the inventory when someone purchases something online, and then it'll adjust for you on the website. So streamlined, makes your life so much easier. So if you're interested in launching your own website, head over to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/imawonder for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. And before I forget, I know I'm cutting it really close to November 30th, but you still have a little bit of time to sign up to my Patreon page if you are interested in receiving this Scorpio illustration as a postcard and or sticker in the mail. When it came time to construct the design of this character for Scorpio, I knew that I definitely wanted to use a scorpion motif, even though it is extremely on the nose, and that is something that I have been trying to avoid with a lot of these Zodiac illustrations. For me, I felt like a scorpion was a really cool motif that I would gravitate towards anyways. So you can see that there is a scorpion kind of jeweled piece on the shoulder there on her top or dress. And I also wanted to include water in the background again because Scorpio is a water sign, and I have been having a lot of fun with trying to interpret a water motif a little bit differently every single time because I didn't want them to feel all the same. And so I felt like this one is more of a top-down view, whereas the previous ones were had a different perspective. And then when it came to the color palette, Scorpio's color palette is often red and purples and gold. So that to me was a pretty harmonious color palette to go with. I, of course, ended up using a lot of pinks as well because I think pink is a nice bridge between purple and red. And in this case, I didn't go with super strong reds. I went with kind of burgundy, purple leaning, kind of muted reds. And again, I think that just created a lot more of a harmony between all of the colors. And the nice thing about that color palette is I felt like it helps reinforce the stereotype that Scorpios are seen as mysterious. And to me, when I think of mysterious, I also kind of associate it with alluring. So that's part of why I gave her the expression that I did. And another few descriptors for Scorpio is passionate and powerful and assertive. So again, those are all elements of a personality that I wanted to show off in this illustration, in the kind of choices that I made for her expression, her pose, the fashion choices. And I always like to look at kind of notable celebrities in the respective zodiac signs. So a couple of them that I saw was Willow Smith and Lord, who are both really, really cool people. That's just like the best way I could describe it. They have a little bit of edge to them. There's something a little bit alternative about them as well. So that's kind of the inspiration that I took for giving this character a bold, smoky eye. And I loved the idea of giving her sort of a mullet haircut because, again, to me, that just reads really edgy and mysterious and rock and roll. So yeah, that's the vibe that I was going for with Scorpio. And I also included some chrysanthemums, I think that's how you say it. It's kind of a long name for the flower, but such beautiful, beautiful flowers. I discovered I really, really enjoy drawing them. I was a little nervous about it because they seem so detailed with how many petals they have, but I don't know, there was something really fascinating about drawing them, and I definitely think I want to include them in future illustrations because I just think they look really fascinating. So, as I have now almost completed the full set of this series, we are on number 11, and I can't believe it's already end of November. The time of this year just flew by. And yeah, it got me really thinking about my art style and where I want to take my work next year. I've mentioned this on my Patreon podcast that I really have enjoyed having a overarching theme for my Patreon rewards because it's nice to have a full set at the end, and it's really satisfying to be able to turn it into a zine. And I think that it also allows my patrons to get an understanding of what to expect each month because, as we know, I tend to finish these towards the end of the month. But while I know that I wanted the Zodiac portrait series to feel really consistent with one another, it also meant that it was kind of limiting because I wanted them to be really cohesive and consistent with each other. And so, admittedly, even though I tried my best to do something a little bit unique with each one, it did get really repetitive, especially over the course of an entire year. And that came down to the mediums that I was using, the composition choices, and just, I felt like it was stunting me to a degree. And in doing this series, I also learned there's elements about my choices that I don't know if I actually enjoy that much, which is kind of bizarre to say. And what I mean by that is I have been really paying attention to, is this fun for me? Is this bringing me joy? Because I've noticed that so much of my artwork this year has been really hard in terms of me staying engaged with it. I feel like I'm constantly getting distracted or just don't feel like I can focus. And a part of me is wondering if that has to do with the fact that I'm just not enjoying the actual journey and process of making these pieces sometimes. And something that I picked up on is so many of my illustrations, especially these Zodiac pieces, have a lot of teeny tiny tedious details. Like we'll see later, I add a bunch of little jewelry to her ears and a lot of little hardware on her clothing. And this is something that I do a lot because I draw so much inspiration from fashion, and I love putting my characters in interesting fashion pieces. But the thing is, real life clothes and fashion, to me, I love like all those teeny little details, all the little hardware. And that's something that I include because I'm pulling from these real life pieces that I see on Pinterest or Instagram. But when it comes down to actually rendering it, I kind of dread doing it because I just find it's so tedious and kind of annoying, to be honest. And even though I do feel like it helps create a lot more interest on the artwork visually because we're filling up the space and adding more intricacies, at the actual act of doing it is not that fun. And so a part of me is wondering if that is something I need to evaluate moving forward in my next pieces. And that doesn't mean I want to overly simplify my work necessarily, but maybe I need to address creating interest in my illustrations in a different way. Maybe I need to add more elements, but they don't need to be that teeny tiny. Maybe I can just exaggerate the scale of these things a little bit more. Because, yeah, I think a really important thing is to recognize that just because you like something or you visually enjoy something doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be included in your own artwork. Another catalyst that has been kind of propelling me to evaluate where I want to take my art style moving forward is recently my friend asked me to be a guest speaker for her class. She's a illustration professor at a university here in Toronto. And yeah, so basically I put on a presentation for her students talking about my journey to becoming a full-time artist. And what was really interesting about putting together that presentation was it allowed me to kind of dig back into all of the different kind of eras of my art style, essentially, and where I was coming from and what it looked like from high school to college to post-college, the early days of my YouTube channel and to now. And so it was interesting to see the, evolution of my art style, but also paying attention to some of the older work that to me still really held up and what I still was gravitating towards or what I really liked about these pieces. And something that I noticed was, I think the pieces that I've done that feel less like leaning further away from realism and feeling a little bit more stylized is something that I think I'm enjoying more lately. And that's another thing that I think kind of feeds into what do I find fun in terms of actual painting. Like rendering the face used to be something that I absolutely loved doing, but now sometimes I'm finding it a little bit tedious again. Like it's just, I'd rather focus in on the individual features and then just do some like fun makeup and then call it a day. So That doesn't mean I'm going to be completely changing my art style. Like I mentioned this many, many times before, art style is not something that you can force. It's just something that's going to come naturally to you. But I do think that it is something that obviously will continue to evolve and change over time, depending on your tastes and how you want to spend your energy on certain things. And so for me, I think I want to continue to push my artwork in a more stylized way. It's obviously always going to be very representative. I don't ever see myself going like full abstract or anything like that. But I think I'm interested in spending more time on other elements, like creating more interesting shape language and silhouettes and more atmosphere, maybe, as opposed to making the hand look like a real hand, if that makes sense. So I don't know if I'm making any logical points here. I'm just sort of just talking off the top of my head and spewing out random thoughts that I've been having lately. But yeah, the goal for next year's Patreon artwork theme is going to be witches. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I absolutely love drawing witches. And way back in 2017, I did a Witchtober, series, and it was so much fun. And so this allows me to tap into a subject that I'm definitely really interested in, but it's wide enough and flexible enough that I can take that theme and run with it in a lot of different interpretations. So with that, I'm able to explore working with multitudes of different mediums. I'm really excited to hopefully return to painting on wood panels and canvases. That's something that I haven't done in a really long time. I don't think I did any this year, which is crazy. And so I can also, of course, explore different mediums as well. I can use watercolor, gouache, acrylics, markers, whatever. And I can do, full figure illustrations with backgrounds. I could do close-up portraits. So I'm really, really excited to be able to explore a lot of different avenues with this theme. And hopefully fall back in love with making art. It's something that, I think a lot of people struggle with when art becomes your main source of income, when it becomes your job, because it just carries a lot of baggage and it just feels so different than when you're creating artwork purely for the joy of it. And so I really want to return to that relationship that I had with art, where I was like super passionate about it and I had so much fun doing it. And that isn't to say that there isn't parts of all of these illustrations that I made this year that I didn't enjoy making. I just feel like a lot of the times I'm struggling to stay focused on them. And I'm wondering if part of it is I need to reevaluate how I'm going about my illustrations so that I'm more engaged with it and I'm having more fun with it. Because at the end of the day, if I have the freedom to be a full-time independent artist, I might as well make the most of it in any way I can. And, going into a creative career, you're doing that because you love it, not because it's to pay the bills. And I want to make sure that I'm continuing to maintain my love for art while paying the bills, So yeah, I'm feeling weirdly invigorated about the prospect of closing the chapter on this Zodiac illustration series and looking forward to being able to try new things again. And as I'm wrapping up this week's video, I also want to mention that this Zodiac series I will be turning into a zine, and I think I'm going to compile it with my previous Zodiac series that I did a number of years ago. So there'll be 24 illustrations in total, and I'm really looking forward to being able to put that together because it's been a while since I've released a new zine, and that way you can have a collection of them all together. And the other thing that I've been thinking about is, I spent a lot of time and energy on all of these illustrations, and while I am releasing them as postcard size prints and stickers over on Patreon, I think that these could look really, really nice as bigger sized prints. The illustrations themselves are on 9x12 inch paper, so it's a lot of prints to have on hand all the time. So what I was thinking is to potentially do a kind of limited edition run of them. I'm thinking maybe I'd open up pre-orders on my shop, and then you can place an order for whichever Zodiac illustration that you want to grab, and then I'll do small batches of them. So let me know what you think if you're interested in being able to have a larger size, like a letter size print of these Zodiac pieces, and I will look into doing that. Probably not in time for the holiday season, but maybe early next year, January, February, March or so, as well as the zine. But as I mentioned earlier, you can join my Patreon to have access to the Patreon exclusive shop, and you can purchase all of the previous Zodiac illustration rewards of the postcard size and the sticker if you are interested in any of them. Of course, absolutely no pressure, just you being here watching my videos. If you like and subscribe and comment, I'll really appreciate that as well. Any engagement is a big support to me. And I hope that you have an amazing day or evening wherever you're at, and look forward to next month when I complete the series with Sagittarius, and also will be posting part 1 of my Korea vlog. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!